Okay, so this is going to be our 2-point perspective city that we will be doing as an exercise. What you want to have is your sketchbook sheet of paper. You want to also have a ruler that can fit your sketchbook. This is a 12-inch ruler, if possible. If not, then use an edge of a book or something that has a hard form that you can create straight lines. Pencil, I'm going to be using an HB pencil. And I went ahead and added a little eraser to the top of this. It'll just help me as I work. I also have my other erasers that I recommend utilizing some sort of compressed eraser. Kneaded eraser is good, but it won't pull off all the lines we might need to get, so I would say stay away from this kneaded eraser. And then a sweep brush if you do have access to that, we're gonna do a lot of erasing. If not, then you can just use your hand to erase, that's okay. This is an exercise, so it's not one of the finished rendered pieces that we will spend many hours on. Okay, so first of all, what you want to do is we're going to create a straight line in the center of our paper. It's going to be approximately 12 inches in length. This paper is a little bit longer than our sketchbook paper, which is fine, but that's why I just have a different size. Okay, so here's my horizon line. This is also known as the eye level. So I'm going to go ahead and write eye level here. And then also horizon line. Then I'm going to have 2 points on either edge. That is why it's called 2-point perspective. So I'll make 2 little dots fairly at the edge of this form, the line. So I have my 2 points for 2-point perspective. This is also called vanishing points. So I'm going to go ahead and write up here, vanishing points. And then again, eye level or horizon line. As artists, we are working with a flat surface and we are trying to create an illusion. So we use different perspectives to create that sense of depth in an artwork. Okay, so next what you want to do is have your ruler, and I'm going to make a line pretty close in the center that will be vertical. It's going to intersect the horizon line. And it could be, this one I know is a little bit longer and then shorter on this top. It doesn't matter, just as long as it intersects. Okay, next what I'm going to do is I have, at the very top of these lines, we're going to draw them over to the vanishing points. So the very top and the bottom of this line will go to the right side and vice versa for the left side. And we're going to use our ruler just to make sure we have accuracy for straightness. When you are making these lines that are horizontal, I recommend not to press too hard to have a heavy hand with your medium, just because a lot of these horizon lines are going to be erased. Now I'm doing the right-hand side, and this is going to be our first building that we are creating. We're creating a cityscape, and this is looking at it at an angle. So again, I have my center line, and then I went ahead and intersected both edges to each vanishing point. Now we're not done there. We created a shape, but now we have to close up our form. And we are going to create a fairly narrow building just because we want to get enough buildings into the space. So anything that is vertical is going to stay vertical. It'll be parallel with this middle line. Anything that we draw that is horizontal will meet a vanishing point. So it'll have an angle to it in 2-point. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just, again, you can decide how wide or how narrow. Again, I recommend to make it a little bit narrow just so we have enough space. And now this is the edge of one side of my building. I'm going to go ahead and do the opposite now. Again, create it pretty narrow. Okay, so this is now the first shape of my building. In order for me to see it a little bit more clear, I'm going to go ahead and erase these center lines. That horizon line will not be seen anymore because now the building is in front of it. Next, what we're going to do is add windows and doors, and we're going to keep it simple. If you want, you can get this very complex. It can look really immaculate and amazing, but we are going to use the simplistic version just for this exercise. So on this side, I'm going to just make it fairly simple, a grid pattern, almost like windows that are embedded upon each other. And the neat thing is we already have our guidelines. We already have these lines here that are the horizon lines, and the vertical. So they kind of already create this gate or framework of how each line is supposed to intersect and go. So a quick way to do this is, it's almost like you're working clockwise. If I have my ruler right at the horizon line or vanishing point, I'm going to go ahead and make a straight line. Then I'm going to hold on to this one side and just rotate it down and make another line. And I'm going to continue down, making these straight horizontal lines. I still want all these lines to follow my vanishing point. So now I have everything that is, again, horizontal will follow a vanishing point. So there's an angle to them, and that's what we want. We're creating this sense of dimension. What I'm going to do next is now make vertical lines, and we talked about before, anything that is vertical is going to stay vertical. It'll be parallel. It will not have a certain perspective in 2 point, meaning a vanishing line will not be next to that. So I'm just going to go ahead and make up how large I want to do this, and I'm just going to make my lines intersect all the way from the very top to the bottom. And then I have one side of my building. There's so many ways you can make individual windows. You can make little rectangular shapes and form, really decorative patterns, just like you may see on a real building. This again is a simple form. Next side, we're going to do a little bit different. We're going to go ahead and make a couple different windows, and then we'll make a door at the very bottom. So again, it's the same idea. Now we're just doing the opposite side. So I'm going to hold on to where my vanishing point is at, and we're just going to rotate now the ruler. I'm going to go ahead and keep this same existing line just so it looks kind of interesting aesthetically. And I'm going to draw that straight line here. And then I will draw another line that is intersecting this other window. And then I'll skip a little bit. So these just have a couple of little patterns to them. If I do want to make them straight, I can. And I'm going to go ahead and close them off. Now I can go ahead and erase these edges so that it just has a single window, or I can go ahead and just keep it like a decorative pattern that the window is a different angle or side. Then I'm going to make a door. Now it depends how high you want the door to be. If it's going to be fairly long, that means that these buildings will be fairly short. If you want the building door to be a little bit smaller, that just means these buildings are a little bit taller. So just think about whatever you decide for the door would be the rest of the perspective too, as you consciously create the rest of the buildings. I'm going to go ahead and keep the same line that we did on the other side too. I'll actually go this way. And I just made a small line. I didn't make it all the way across. Then I'm going to continue with the straight lines I did before. This is super fun. You have a great time to be creative. We'll put a center door as well. Just gonna make a center mark so I know where that would be. This is a little more visually. And so now here is my door entryway. Okay, so this is our first building. Yay! Let's go ahead and do another building here, and we're going to make this a little bit taller. So first step is we're going to make that center point. And what I can do just for kind of more aesthetic reasons to make things easier on the eye, I'm going to go ahead and erase these lines that are on the very top. We want to keep right now the horizon line and the bottom line, just because the bottom line is going to be the foundation and everything else will be built off of that for now, and then we will make a little sidewalk. Okay, so now it's looking a little bit more better, right, in terms of how it looks in its picture plane. Now, the next building I create, you always want to be careful how far you make the intersecting line, which is the center line, that dividing line. If I make my center line here, that means there's going to be a vacant lot on this side, and it will be more noticeable as we keep going. But I'm going to allow my building to be fairly close to the other one, so it'll be a small alleyway. And I'm going to go ahead and make it again a little bit taller than the other one. So here is my line. Same thing that we did with this middle line here. We had each of the tops go to each vanishing point. We'll do the same thing with this one now. Here's our intersecting straight line. So each of the top points, the bottom and the top, will go to the left, bottom, top will go to the right as well. And you can see that this can get pretty detailed with all these lines. You just want to make sure that you're erasing to be conscious that it doesn't get too difficult to see what is where. Now I already have my bottom line established, so I don't have to mess with that. Let's go ahead and go with the other one. And really this will keep on going to the very end, but I'm gonna go ahead and stop there because I know my building's not gonna extend that lengthwise. And again, that makes sense, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just make sure my lines are intersecting. I'm going to just make the straight line as much as I want to, and know that that building's gonna end somehow behind this other building, somewhere behind it. Now you never wanna forget this bottom portion. Sometimes it's forgotten. We need to close off this bottom area. So what we're going to do is this very bottom line will intersect with the right hand vanishing point. And it can keep on going again to the very end, but it's not necessary because we already know our building will close off. So I'm gonna go ahead and erase this side again, just so it's easier to understand and see the edge. And then next I wanna close off my other side. So again, you can make it as wide or as narrow as you want. We're gonna keep it a little narrow just so we have space with the other buildings. And again, I'm going to erase now my horizon line.